Good morning, my loves. How are you today? So, we're going to do a look real quick while we discuss the Evil Lives Here Season 1, Episode 2, titled My Brother's Secret. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, I guess if you are a sibling, most of this is going to be like, what would I do in this situation? And I've hit that myself multiple times. So we're just going to get started. Hopefully I've memorized enough of this to be concentrating on you and not over here. But we're going to get right to it. So, and I struggle because I've got this right where I look at from my eyes. So I'm going to move it because when I do my face, I don't need that. So, anyways, the episode starts and we meet Danielle White. I struggled with her name for a little bit because it's spelled really weird, Danyall, and I wasn't really sure, but I believe it's Danielle. And I was like, okay, so in the episode, it'll tell me when somebody says her name. But apparently, her family called her D, which didn't help me at all. So, her name is Danielle White, and she is the sister to the main character in this episode. And she comes on and she's like, I don't know if this is bothering me because it keeps sliding. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. She says, I don't know if I could talk about these events. And it also states that it's been 12 years since she's talked about it. So in the series regular fashion, they show footage of the news, you know, the actual footage of cops digging, which, you know, you got to assume they're in someone's backyard, they're digging probably for bodies and evidence and whatever. So that's how it starts. It's, you know, typical. They go straight to the news coverage before really telling us what's going on. So it has done that. And then Danielle comes on and says that as soon as she saw the footage of them in her brother's backyard, she knew that whatever he was guilty of, whatever it was that we're going to learn that he has done. Now, that's pretty much their intro. Enough to catch your attention, get you hooked, get you whatever. And then it goes into their creepy intro, which I love. I mentioned it last time. So I looked it up. So I learned that the opening theme is called What's So Amazing About Grace by the Paper Chase. Now, I meant to look up Paper Chase and learn more about them, but I didn't. But, so I'm going to drop a quick audio video in here of just a few seconds of the opening so you know why I love it. It's creepy. It's cool for an episode or for a series called Evil Lives Here. Right? So, yeah, I'm going to drop that in real quick and I'll be right back. So there's a little bit of it. I didn't want to do too much. I'm not really sure how all that works. So just a hint so you can see that it's creepy, it's cool. I don't know why I like it so much. I mean, am I crazy? Yes. But really, I don't know. So let me know what you think of it. Anyways, let's get back to the story. So then we go, the show starts with footage of our main character today, which his name is Richard Paul White. And they show him in an interrogation room. So this is actual footage of Richard in the interrogation room. And the video is partially his confession. I'm going to have to move this. I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay, partially his confession and partially an interview. So it's actually really cool that we're getting to see live footage. In a way, it's actually kind of creepy, and you'll find out why I say it's really creepy. Sorry. Here soon. The fact that we can see it is cool. The fact the way it's been used at the end of the show when I tell you is not cool. So anyways, he starts by saying, and I quote, "I wanted to get caught because I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop," end quote. Then it states, and if you've never watched an episode of Evil Lives Here, when they show things like that, it'll go to like a black screen or a white screen, and this bubble will come up and it gives you information. So when I say then it states, it's because it's giving me this information. That on September 10th, 2003, Richard Paul White was arrested in Aurora, Colorado. And this is where we finally realize the events of the episode, who it involves, and where they're located. Then it shows some more interrogation footage that states, and it's just a little blurb, and it's just like he says, "I need help." So, okay. We'll have a lot to unpack with that shortly. So then Danielle comes back and states there are multiple siblings in this family, but they don't ever tell us who they are, or names, ages, whatever. But she begins to say that her and Richard were only 18 months apart and had always been really close. She considered him like a twin, like her other half. So, I mean, it was not unreasonable to think that she thought the world of her brother. It doesn't say if she's older or he's older, but it does state that information. So then she states, as I think all of us would when we're first learning about some terrible things, she's like, there's no way I thought Richard could do this. She said, there's just no way. But then the TV still tells us there had been signs. So, of course, there's always signs that we sometimes don't see or catch or, realize in the moment when stuff's going down. We just don't see it till later. So, here we are all these years later. When was this? 2003. We're 19 years later. We can look back and say, oh, yeah, these are signs that she should have seen growing up with Richard. But really, would we have caught them ourselves? And that's kind of where I'm at with this. And this has nothing to do with what I think, what he did, and his guilt, innocence, whatever. I am thinking as the sister. The sister that's extremely close, that has stated that her and Richard were only 18 months apart, that she considered him the other half of her, and she's so closely involved. Now, I want to state that as a sister, that would be hard. I do not know what I could do or would do in this situation. I just don't. So I don't want to judge, but there are going to be some times that I've got some notes in here that are just like, are you kidding me? How do we not notice this? How does this, slip by? Or why did we think this was normal? So, and that's going to be part of it and part of the mystery to this story. Because to me, in my opinion, there's a lot that is not explained in this episode. And it's mostly about the family. So there's a lot about the family background that we don't know. So, and it's funny because, again, there's reenactment video actors. So I've stated this before. In the last episode, there was a reenactment actor, and I truly thought the kid, because the reenactment actor, that's a lot to say, was probably 8 or so years old. So I thought the kid in the story was going to be that age, to find out he was 4. So right now, the reenactment shows Danielle and Richard as teenagers, but it's never specified. So I just want to state that because she says when she was younger, but we don't know how much younger. There's only one point in time where it comes out and says an age, and that's a big critical part of the story. But right now, we don't really know how old she is. So she said that when she was younger, like I said, the reenactment shows teenagers, which I want to state that because it's just kind of creepy and weird. She said Danielle said that she would wake up in the middle of the night and Richard be sitting in her room just staring at her. And, and she'd be like, what are you doing? What time is it? Why are you in here? Whatever. And I think she said, he just smiled at her. Okay, yeah, that's not a bit creepy, Danielle. Not a bit creepy at all. But she said, she thought it was odd, but didn't think anything else of it. She would tell him to go to bed. Then she would get up and go to bed, or get up and leave the room, and he would just sit there. He would never leave, or at least initially. Eventually, I'm sure he left, but he wouldn't leave, and she would just sit there and think that was just really, really odd. She was saying, I would tell him to go back to his room. I would tell him to leave, whatever. I would leave, and he would just sit there. She said, I thought it was a little odd or peculiar, and realized that this wasn't normal. And I'm like, no, honey, that's creepy. There's nothing normal about that. There's nothing. And she said she realizes it wasn't normal, but come on, seriously, there is something wrong. So yeah, to me, that's like a major sign that was missed. And like I said, if they were actually teenagers, there should have been questions. If they were younger, obviously there should have been questions, but you can almost forgive it a little bit if they're younger. But it shows them as teenagers. And that's where I'm like, were they really? What is actually going on? So, so just moving on. She said her brother was very religious growing up. And she said in a very odd way, because he said he was religious, but in his own way, which at that point I say, okay, yeah, that's never a good sign. Never, ever a good sign. Like, I was just listening. I was out, had to go out this morning, and I was listening to a podcast, and this person did religion in their own way, started their own cults. Yeah, no, not good, right? So anyways, there was no cult started. There was nothing along those lines. But, yeah, she said it was just really, really, really weird because, what was it she said? Okay, so she says that it was the negative things in the Bible that he focused on. So, for example, she would say he truly believed in an eye for an eye. So he was very set on the negative aspects of the Bible. Which, come on, we all, if you've read the Bible, if you know anything about the Bible, there's a lot of not so good things in there, right? I mean, it's not all Jesus loves us. There's some pretty tough spots. And if that's what he was focusing on, that could be a huge issue. So she said there was really times he scared her. But she always rationalized it to, as that was how he was. That's how things were. That's, the way it is. And she said something here, I think, that was really, to me, a sad way to live. They just got used to it. They just kind of shrugged it off. That's just how he was. And I'm like, nobody should ever have to live in fear, right? Nobody should have to live questioning what someone in your family is going to do. A brother, especially a brother that you're close to. So I just found that extremely sad. And yeah, that was just not a cool moment for me. So I'm trying to get better at multitasking. I'm good at multitasking, but apparently I'm not good at doing makeup and talking. So she then states, and this again goes into, it's a very sad situation, because to me this would have been what caused me never to speak to this kid again, brother or not. So she states one time, actually she states he began to scare and she started seeing signs. So this one morning she was getting ready for school and he comes into her room. Nothing unusual about that apparently. And he says, what was it? Okay, so he said, watch this. Then he grabbed her bird, she had a little parakeet, snapped its neck, threw it in the floor for the cat to eat. So she said she was devastated by this. Come on. Yes. Wouldn't we all be? It's there's no excuse for that. I don't care who you are. None. So, I thought I just got a... But, so she was crying, and she's like, why would you do that? What? That bird never did anything to you. Why would you do something like that? And he told her, I want you to fail your, what is it? I want you to fail your finals, or screw up your finals. I really have no words. I'm just, then she states he could be quick to snap and be ruthless. So to me, it's getting worse, right? He's obviously not sorry for the things he's doing and terrorizing his family if he's getting worse. So like I stated, I would have a really hard problem or hard time forgiving him after he killed a pet of mine. But she apparently went on and whatever. And that's, that's each of us our own. I would struggle with that. I really would. I don't think I could be as forgiving as that. Now I'm going to put on some eyeliner and I'll be right back. So while I'm also sitting here and reading this and just mind blown, right? I'm like, where are the parents? Nowhere. Actually, in this episode, let me think. No, because anything I learned about the parents is after, when I did some Google and fell into a rabbit hole. But nowhere in this episode are parents mentioned. And in a way, is very telling in of itself. And makes me question a lot of stuff. But we won't get into that. But, when, he's killing the pets, when he's acting out, where was he? I mean, where were they? And I think I missed this. Yes, I missed this in there, and I want to mention this because this was how bad his religion was getting. He had a favorite album. It was his AC/DC album, whichever copy it was at the time, She didn't even tell me a year this was, but you got to think 80s. Maybe not. Yeah, I would think 80s. I don't know. So he had an AC/DC album, which was his favorite. And he loved this album and listened to it ridiculously religiously. But, I can't get my mascara open. But someone told him once that, what was it? It was Satan's music. Someone told him that the AC/DC album he had was Satan's music. So he smashed that album, got rid of it, because he didn't want that in his life. So again, there's a lot to unpack here. Who's telling him this? They never talk about school. They never talk about going or friends. Did they have friends in the neighborhood? Nothing is mentioned. And to me, it's just very telling because they seem very isolated amongst themselves. So there's just them and however many siblings they have. And I still never figured that out. So at the end, I do know of another sibling I will briefly talk about. but it is never really mentioned, the siblings. And I really found that confusing, I guess is the best word for that. So we get in and we learn more where Danielle says that she, growing up, knew that Richard was different, but she didn't know how. And she made, I'm really confused with this again. You know, how do you not know that's different? But at the same time, it goes back to who were they hanging out with? Who were they talking to? Did they go to school? Was the parents in the picture? I mean, there's just so much to unpack on that, and I don't even know where to start because it's, to me, it's just like common sense. But I'm not in the moment, and again, this isn't my brother, and what would I do if it was? I don't know. So, anyways, let's slide this in here and make some room. Okay, so she says something here, again, just leads to my whole rant, and I need to get past this so we can move on to the story. But she says when you grow up, where's it at? When you grow up with different, you assume different is normal. So again, leading to lots of questions that truly do not get answered in this episode. So it's frustrating. So the next statement states that Richard's behavior is about to, or violent behavior is about to get worse. Which at this point, I don't think would surprise any of us, right? Danielle says, I never asked Richard why he did the things he did, but she understood some of it. Again, leading up to some big tragedy that I cannot believe the ID channel did not discuss at all. And I found out some things. I'm just going to put this out here. But it was on another episode, and I'm not covering that episode, so I didn't watch it. But I got kind of the gist and the basics of it, which I will talk at the end. But it's kind of like still learning what I learned. I am not fully prepared to say, okay, that makes sense. I still need more. Give me more. I need more. More. So, this is going to drive me crazy. I got to figure out a way to fix this because it's never done that before. Where am I at? So because a lot of this isn't explained, I'm just going to say I did find myself having a little bit hard time sympathizing with her. And but you know, she's obviously telling the story. She's very upset in many cases, you know, but I can't even sympathize with her because I don't understand. I mean, I can understand some of it because I'm a sister, and I'm like, what would I do in that position? But I have no reference to what they grew up with and how life was for them, or I had no reference to anything. And that more than anything was very frustrating. So she said, Danielle said that she never knew when Richard's strange behaviors would surface. So they were really literally walking around eggshells around him. So she tells this story, and she tells us she's 19. She's 19 at this time. Okay, so it's the first point of reference that we have gotten for her timeline, right? And she says that she received a frightening phone call from one of her sisters, or siblings. She didn't say sister. And in this call, her her sibling had called to tell her that Richard was HIV positive. So that put Danielle in a panic, scared for her brother's life. Yeah, come on, seriously, we all would be, right? We find out that someone we love, it doesn't even have to be a family member. You find out a friend, a parent to one of your kids' friends. I mean, there's just so many things, but you'd get terrified. And this, like I said, is probably early 90s by now. And it's still a very scary thing, right? So they find out that he's told the other sibling he's HIV positive. Okay, so Danielle says, I went a whole year thinking he was HIV positive and worried to death about him, scared. Come on, I mean, you all know the basics, what we all would be. She said one day he was visiting her at her house. They were sitting outside just talking, and she asked him how treatment was going and, you know, if the medicines were making him sick, because that's a, you know, side effect and so on and so forth. And he didn't have a clue what she was talking about. He kind of laughed and said, what do you mean, what medicines? She said, you know, for your HIV, your medicines that you're having to take. He laughed and he says, I'm not HIV positive. So he completely lied about that, had everybody freaked out. And Danielle thinks he basically did it just to be funny. Which I say, no, not a bit funny. So, I have no idea where I was going. I got distracted by a phone call. So yeah, she thought he did it for funny, to be funny, and that's just not at all funny, right? There's nothing about telling people you're dying and getting them concerned and worried that falls in the category of, oh, that's so hilarious. No, not at all. So, but here's another instance she mentions, and there's a reason why she's telling this, and it's a good reason. But he came up one time and was telling her that his good buddy died, or his buddy's brother, a friend of his died. Okay, so he told Danielle that a friend of his died and he wanted to go to the funeral, which was on the other side of Colorado. So Danielle paid for him to go to the other side of Colorado. And then about 2 years later, she ran into this supposedly dead guy. She said, you know, and I'm just so confused. And they get to talking, and no, there was never anybody that died. He just took her money and probably got drunk, did drugs, whatever it was he was doing. So this leads up to him being a chronic liar. And not just to Danielle. He was this way to everybody. So, you know, you get to the point where you don't believe him because you can't trust anything he says, right? So then he would start, when he'd get drunk, he would start telling stories about crimes he committed, robberies and violence, and I think he even come out and said he murdered somebody. He was telling all these details and all this stuff. Everybody thought he was telling stories. Everybody. Because at this point, he would lie about everything. Like he was one of those that you said if the sky was blue, he would argue with you and tell you it was green. Something crazy because it's just who he was and what he did. So, nobody believed him is what I mean. So looking back at this, I'm like, I get it. I mean, but at the same time, some of the things he's saying are just so crazy. How do you ignore them? I I just don't know. So there was one time, his girlfriend, who he's telling all these lavish stories to, comes over to Danielle, and she's like, do you think he's telling the truth? I mean, come on. I mean, these are just getting worse and worse every time. And Danielle's like, no, he's not. It's a lie. He's wanting attention, whatever. Which, I don't know. So, she tells him that, come on. He's telling everybody he's killed people and buried them in his backyard. She's like, would you really brag about that if you did? She says, come on. She said, nobody in the right mind would claim to do something like that so open, so publicly out in the open. And, she convinced the girlfriend. And it makes sense. So she wasn't just like defending him. I mean, seriously, who in the right mind would commit such atrocities, and then go tell everybody? Unless it was somebody that was just seeking attention and wanting, as sad as it is, there are lots of people that will confess to a crime they didn't commit because they need that attention. She literally thought that's what he was doing. He was just trying to get that attention. So she convinced the girlfriend otherwise. Well, because she was worried he was telling the truth. So then she says, the next time I saw the girlfriend, well, she never told me her name. Not tell me. She didn't tell me personally. She didn't tell the name in the show. So the girlfriend's, it just has to be the girlfriend. So Danielle says, the next time I saw his girlfriend, she was terrified. She come running into Danielle's house, which it didn't state that they lived close by or whatever. It didn't state if the girlfriend drove. She just showed up at Danielle's house and just panicked, freaking out, paranoid, the whole 9 yards, and took Danielle and locked her in the bathroom. Kind of a weird thing to do, in my opinion, but hey, I think she knew what was coming. So then Danielle says the next thing she knows, her brother shows up, and he is just furious. She said, I've never seen him so mad. He shows up, he's banging on the bathroom door, telling him to come out, whatever. So Danielle's like, okay, you got to calm down, blah, blah. She's doing everything she can to calm him down, and he will not calm down. And she can't really get anything out of the girlfriend because she's so panicked, and she just can't. She's just not coherently telling, Danielle what's going on. So Danielle said they sat in that bathroom for hours. And she said, finally, it's like, my kids were coming home. So here we learn she has children. And she's like, I've got to get out of this bathroom and calm the situation down before my children come home. She doesn't say how many. She doesn't say boy, girl, anything. She just says children. Again, I respect the privacy and didn't look any further. So she said that she knew of all Richard's faults, he would never do anything to harm her children, right? So she opens the door and she's telling him, you gotta calm down, whatever. As soon as she opens the door, he's got a gun on her. So, of course, not just on her, but he's pointing a gun at her and the girlfriend. And she's just, seriously, what is going on? But, she's trying to talk him down. You can't do this. You need to let me help you, whatever, right? Well, he keeps saying she wants to end it. She wants to end it. And I get the fact, the girlfriend's trying to break up with him. Okay, he's not taking it very well, obviously. So, he's like, I'm going to end it for her. I'm going to end it, meaning he's going to shoot her, kill her. And then, Danielle's like, no, we, calm down, do whatever. And then he turns the gun on himself. And he threatens to kill himself. And Danielle said, I knew I had to do something. And she said, that's when I told him. I said, if you kill yourself and my kids come home and see this and see that, they will never get it out of their head. Don't traumatize the kids, basically what she's trying to tell him.
She said he stopped and he drops the gun and then he leaves.
So, yeah.
Dude's got some serious issues. But that's the last time that we hear of the girlfriend. So apparently she broke up with him, and after the scare, she was gone out of the picture, which good. Hopefully she was gone out of the picture and not something more dramatic. So, after that, Daniel says, things were never the same between us. And I gotta say, really? Maybe it's about time, right? So she said she avoided him after that incident. She didn't really want to be around him. She didn't want her kids around him. Again, okay. You're not going to hear any complaints out of me because it's probably past time that she separated herself and her kids. So she's been avoiding him, and it doesn't say how long that she's avoided him. You know, I don't think she's avoided him to the point that she doesn't ever talk to him, but she doesn't talk to him like she did. So then it tells us that on September 8th, 2003, which is only a couple days before the incident of all that, the beginning where we saw him in interrogation. So it's going to happen pretty quickly, apparently. Danielle says she gets a phone call from Richard in the middle of the night. And I want to say, I don't think she really says what time, but the clock in the reenactment shows it's like 2:30 a.m. So we know it's early, and Richard is calling, and he's in a panic. He's upset. He says that he needs to see her. He needed her help. There was an accident, and he didn't know what to do, or he needed to run, basically. So she's like, okay, tell me what's going on. So long story short, because apparently there was a big long conversation between them, at least according to the reenactment. But he said he accidentally shot and killed someone. Said apparently Richard's story is that he and a buddy were at his apartment drinking and smoking some weed, and Richard got out this new gun that he had just bought. And he got it out and was showing his friend and cleaning it, and accidentally shot his friend. And he was in a panic. Okay. That opens up a lot. What do we do in that situation, right? All of this leading up to the interrogation, I think, is a good question for us in the sense of, what do you do if this was you? Okay. So Richard wanted her help. She said there was no reason why I didn't believe him. She said there was no reason why I would believe him. She says I really didn't know because of all his lies and his stories. She said, why would I believe it? Why would I not believe it? Why wouldn't I try to help him? Again, form your opinion. Let me know what you think. So, she said she would help him. She went, she got him his camping gear, I think his boots, his camo, that kind of thing, and some food. But it's early, so she only had a little bit of food to get him. She said she drove out to the mountains, took him out to the mountains. She actually took him to the mountains. And he was going to kind of live out on his own and forage and, kind of be a man of the mountain. And Danielle says it's awful. Awful as it was, I kept thinking he was finally going to be someone else's problem. He was going to be out of my life, at least directly, all the time. That's so harsh. But do we disagree? I don't know if I would. It's just like, yeah. So anyways, so she gets his stuff and tells him, she says, I'll bring you some more food tomorrow. And he's talking, and all of a sudden he starts asking her, does anybody know you're here? She says, I really got kind of a creepy feeling when he asked me that. She says, no, nobody knows I'm here. He's like, did you tell anybody? She's like, no, I didn't tell anybody. And she says, I was really creeped out. I would have been too. So then she says, she's like, okay, I'm going to go. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get you taken care of. She says, when she starts to leave, she heard him cock his gun. Now, she said she froze in panic. She was scared. Yes, we all would be, right? She's thinking, Richard's confessed. He's hiding. He doesn't want anybody ever to find him, and that includes getting rid of me. And she was pretty much thinking she was a goner. So she says, I did everything I could just to convince him that I believed him and his story and what happened, and that I would be back with groceries and food for him in the next day. And she said, he's still very quiet, not saying anything. And she's like, well, I got to get back to my kids. So she's smart enough to use her children when needed. And she said, he's like, okay, I'll see you later. I love you. So she said she got the hell out of there. And she said she was at home. And the death, which didn't make sense to me because this was really quick in my opinion. The death that Richard was talking about was already in the news. Is that just me? I mean, was that not quick? I don't know. So I'm thinking there was a little bit of gap somewhere in there. Something's not completely filling out right. But anyways, so she said she's reading it in the paper and the cops have ruled it a suicide. And she said she was just heartbroken that it was committed suicide or deemed a suicide. She's like, I just started thinking, she said, these poor people, his family is going to think he committed suicide and then start wondering, what could I have done to make it better? Could I have helped him? Is there something that could have been done? I could not let that other family live like that. I could not let them think that their son, brother, whatever, committed suicide and them think that maybe they could have helped and stopped it. She said, so I called the cops. She said, I truly believed it was an accidental shooting. She says, I had to believe it was an accidental shooting. So she said she called the cops and told them that she had information on the story that was in the paper and that her brother told her it was not a suicide, that it was an accidental shooting. She said, I had to believe it was an accidental shooting or I would think I was betraying him. So this is where I'm like, okay, we can't do it and talk. Okay, so she's saying, she has to believe it's an accident or she feels like she's betrayed him. Okay, so here's where I'm confused. Because what would you do if it was your sibling? I'm not saying she did the wrong thing. I'm just saying that would be a very difficult decision to make. I mean, yeah, that would be difficult. So let's get through the rest of this because I'm done. Anyways, Richard was arrested. She told him where to find him. He went and picked him up. And now we're back to the interrogation room footage. Okay, so we're at the footage. And I'm going to be reading my notes because there's a lot of quotes I want to make sure I'm saying correctly. So the cops went and got him and he was arrested. Richard, in the video, is still in his camo gear and heavy clothing from where he was in the mountains. He then confessed to killing his friend. In the interrogation video, Richard states, and I quote, there was an accident. We were just sitting there, and we were cleaning our guns. We were just bleeping around, and my gun went off. 1 minute we're sitting there talking, laughing, and the next minute he has a hole in the head, end quote. I've cleaned my guns. I guess I just don't understand, and it happens a lot. So this isn't anything on the story. This is me, because having cleaned my guns before, I don't know how you accidentally shoot somebody when you're unloading the gun Maybe that's how. Maybe when they're unloading the gun, it goes off. I don't know. So, when you're watching the video, Richard is very nonchalant about this incident, and his telling the whole story is kind of spooky. His way he's holding himself and the things he's saying and doing is just very off, in my opinion. So, but after the admission and confession of his friend, he makes another shocking admission that he has. Okay, he makes another shocking admission, and I quote, "I am a killer. I've killed 3 other people," end quote. Yikes, right? So then he states they were all prostitutes. And as he said, quote, "No one cares about those people," end quote. Unfortunately, this is such a reoccurring thing. It's so sad. So sad that someone can take someone's life and not have any remorse, but think, they're just, they're prostitutes or they're whatever. Nobody cares. So he claims he has buried 2 of them in his backyard and 1 in the wild. I don't know where the wild would be, because looking at where he lived, he looked like he lived like in an apartment or a townhouse type of situation. There's people around him, other houses around him. So I don't know where the wild was, and it never explained it. But you start to realize that these are the stories he has been telling everybody that would listen for years. So when Danielle says that she heard Richard confess to the murder, she thought he was sending the police on a wild goose chase. So she's still very much in denial. Like, this could not happen. My brother, he accidentally shot somebody, but he would never kill anybody in cold blood. She's very much in denial. So she was like, there's no way this is real. She thought it was more of his BS, and the cops were idiots for going and checking it out when she was sure there was nothing going to be there. At this time, the news coverage has already picked up and is calling him a serial killer. And the police were looking for the body. See, we see a lot of footage of them in the backyard of Richard's house and searching for bodies. We even see one covered body, I'm assuming, on a gurney being taken out. So Danielle says she never believed her brother's stories and thought he was a compulsive liar until she saw the news coverage that I just mentioned. And then she knew it was true. So, yeah, the video footage has them removing bodies. The statement saying he's killed and then Richard makes a statement saying he's killed 3 more people besides the 3 that they've already found. But no bodies were found. So he's kind of flipping back to his lying, his ways, yeah. So now we come up, and this to me is kind of weird because usually you see family, and the only family that's been on here is Danielle, the sister. Like I said, we know there's more family, but nothing's said. Nothing's ever said to the father, the mother, stepfather, stepmother, any of that. So now we meet a homicide detective. Okay, so homicide detective Joe Humphrey worked this case. He said the one thing all these women... Okay, so this is going to get kind of graphic. It's going to just detail how Richard killed these women. So the one thing they all had in common was the way Richard assaulted them and the fact they were prostitutes. Joe said Richard's MO, modus operandus, was to pick up the prostitute and take her back to his home. Once they were inside, he would then take control of the woman by either knocking her out or knocking them unconscious or pulling a pistol on them. He would repeatedly force oral and vaginal intercourse. When Richard needed to rest, he forced them to pray for forgiveness for being a promiscuous woman, then handcuffed them to him while he slept so they couldn't get away. Then, before he finally killed them after days of torture, doing this over and over again for days, he would make them pray again before murdering them. Now, this was interesting to me because apparently there was a woman or 2 that he let go or they either escaped, but there's no information on these women. It just states that there were women that got away. And a detective said, had he not been caught, he would not have stopped either. So Danielle comes back and said that this to me is just kind of families, right? So she says there's a lot of people upset and mad at her because she called the cops and told them where he was. She said she had, or has even, family members that were furious and wouldn't speak to her, and they still don't. The backlash was very difficult because of the pain he brought his victims. Richard brought the victims, their family, and his own family. Many of the victims didn't even know their daughters were missing until they get the call that they're dead. That is just a lot of trauma. Can you imagine thinking your child's okay, then all of a sudden you get that call that she's been living this life and now she's dead? Okay. So Danielle said she had a hard time dealing with the stress of this, and she actually started drinking and picking up other bad habits to deal with it. So she said that eventually she picked up and moved over 3 hours away so she could get away and where nobody knew her. So Richard cut a deal to avoid the death penalty and was given double life sentences. He will spend the rest of his life in prison without parole. There has never been a trial since he did this deal. So Danielle says what's haunted her the most is something her brother said after the arrest. And he told her, and I quote, "The only reason I told you is because I knew you'd do the right thing and stop me," end quote. So he's telling her, he knew the day that he told her in the forest or woods or wherever they were at, mountains, that she would tell on him because she knew he knew she would do the right thing. Does that make a person feel better? Probably not, especially when you think said brother pulled a pistol and cocked it and was going to shoot you in the back when you were leaving. So that probably doesn't give you much comfort. But she says it has bothered her over the years. So she thinks her brother was begging for someone to stop him. And that's why he always told the stories, but nobody believed him. And she wonders, as we all probably do, what would have happened if someone had believed him and stopped him? How many lives would they have been able to save? So that's pretty much how that story ended on the ID Channel's episode, Evil Lives Here. I jumped down sort of a rabbit hole, and I found some other information I wanted to talk about. So apparently there was multiple different series done on Richard. One of them was called I Lived with a Killer. This is episode 17. I don't know what season. And I did not watch this because I'm here to talk about the ID's Evil Lives Here. I didn't want to kind of confuse the whole situation. But this show, or this episode, shows a sister named Maureen telling her story. It was aired October 2019, so that's pretty recent considering, the events happened in 2006, and I know Danielle's was it 2000? Anyways, it was early 2000s when this whole thing went down with Richard. Danielle did her episode, it was in 2016 when this series came on. And then this one is 2019. So Maureen was the youngest sister. Or no, one of the younger sisters. It doesn't say because it still doesn't say how many siblings. And she thought of Richard as a father figure. So again, I'm like, okay, so where is the father? Why is he your father figure? What is the dynamics of this family? Still not real information. And I didn't watch it. I should have to give this more information to you. But at the same time. So, and I didn't want to confuse it. I really didn't because I really started to watch it and I was like, I knew if I did, I would get all my story that I was telling you from what I watched, which is what I'm doing. I'm telling you about what I watched. So I don't want to, anyways, I just didn't. So I found this interesting. 2005, April of 2005, the Denver Post posted that a story on Richard's father. First time we've heard of a father. He was selling DVD taped copies of his son's videotaped confessions with all the details of the murders, the rapes, everything for $39.99. Oh, what a deal. What a piece of shit. What a deal. Randolph Duke White, the father, was selling these DVDs and claimed a portion of the sales would go to the victims' families. There's got to be a better way to help a victim's family, if that's your true intention. Needless to say, this did not go well. And apparently it's even illegal. The Denver's chief deputy attorney said there were laws to prevent this kind of thing. So Duke eventually took down a website he had put up selling them, and it was taken down due to nonprofit, but he got it back up pretty quickly apparently. And one of the victims' fathers said White was making money off the death of his daughter and nothing was sent to his family or his daughter's child. So Duke came back and said, hey, I'm not making enough money to give the victim's family. And the money would go to his grandchildren who were traumatized by having to testify in front of a grand jury. So this is the first time that we've heard this. Other than Danielle's kids, how many kids are there? How many grandkids did this kid have? Why did they have to go in front of a grand jury? What happened that these kids witnessed that they had to go in front of the grand jury? Nothing is ever stated in my episode. It could have been stated in the other episode, but it didn't state it in the story. And I'm at the point, too, where these are kids. Do I really want to dig into their life? I don't know. So there is another mention. And apparently Maureen mentioned this in her episode, and there was a little bit of a story done, not enough to give me any information or details, but enough to question even more what the hell is going on. So there's mention of Richard being severely abused by a stepfather. So now we have a father and a stepfather, nothing else. Maureen said Richard would protect her from her stepfather growing up. Again, said, what kind of protection did you need? But nothing is stated, nothing is told. I'm thinking Maureen's episode probably will give us more information on the stepfather and the abuse, but she did claim that there was abuse and that's why he was the way he was, which, come on, we all know that. We don't all know that. We all know that serial killers, whatever, will claim that there's a traumatic episode, something traumatic in their life that caused them to act the way they did. So I'm not really surprised that this has been brought up. I do not know if it was true or not. And I don't believe it's an excuse to kill somebody. So that be what it is. That's the end of this episode. So that was season 2 of Evil Lives, or season 1, episode 2 of Evil Lives here by ID Channel. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. I've got to do better with timing because I've been done with my makeup both times before I got done with the story, and figure out what the hell's going on with my camera falling. So until next time, guys, goodbye.